Our Target Data Breach Anatomy of an Attack webinar. Thanks so much for joining us today. And we're very excited that today we're co-hosting our webinar with a partner of ours, Second Watch. So my name is Diane Gary. I'm Product Marketing Manager here at AlertLogic. I have the honor of being the moderator for today's event. With me here in Houston is Kevin Stevens, a security researcher with AlertLogic. Good morning, Kevin.
Good morning.
So Kevin and his team spent a lot of time over the last couple of months really diving into what happens in the target data breach, what malware was used and how it works. And I think you're going to be interested. He has some fascinating stuff to share about what exactly happens there and how the malware works. It's really interesting stuff. And then joining us on the phone is Carl Reeves. Hello, Carl.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning to you. Carl is the VP of Solutions Architecture with Second Watch. And so in the second half of our presentation today, Carl's going to walk through a very technical example of how to protect your environment from data breaches just like this, using specifically example from AWS. And Carl, as VP of Solution Architecture, does this a lot. Him and his team are responsible for architecting appropriate solutions for a variety of customers. And so I think what you'll learn from him is how to protect an environment from this and other types of breaches. So just a couple of logistics things before we get started. If you could forward again. Okay, 2 times. So agenda-wise, we'll spend about 45 minutes in terms of total presentation. Kevin, probably 20-25. Carl, 20-25. And we'll cover target data breach, what was in the news, sort of what's been reported. But then the more interesting part, I think, is going to be diving into the malware, what it is, where it came from, how it works. And then second part of the session, very much around how to protect yourself. So logistics-wise, we'll take questions as we go through. And Kevin and Carl, if you're okay, I might interrupt you now and then to ask a question if it's sort of timely with what you're talking about. So please ask a question anytime. There should be a question box at the lower right of your screen. Use that, and we'll follow along and make this as interactive as possible. So that's logistics and agenda. At this point, Kevin, I'm ready to hand things over to you. If you could take us through the malware attack itself.
Great. Let's get started. As everyone knows, Target was one of the largest breaches in history. And we're going to go over some of the timeline of how things originated and initiated an attack. Breaking 1st of December, actually the 18th, the Wall Street Journal and actually Krebs at the same time started coming out with reports that Target had been compromised. And of course, after that, coming into January 10th or so, we come up with Target actually confirms that they were part of a breach. And eventually, they send out a form, or they posted on the website, that they were compromised. A bunch of numbers came out. They started at 110 million, 70 million, 40 million. We heard numbers all over the place. And this is the form they sent out, something you really never want to see as a company. It's going to hurt your reputation. It's going to hurt you financially. But this is it. Dear Target guest, and they go on to say that you've been part of a breach. And this is what's being reported. The attack with a malicious software infects POS systems and sends credit card data via FTP. Target actually runs a self-made POS system running Windows OS. The malware, which was Black POS, was actually traced to Russia and sold to several European cyber criminals. We found it in many different forums along the way. And it impacted 110 customers. The 110 is actually not total credit cards. It turns out that approximately 40 million were credit cards. The rest of that number really comes down to emails. So that's one of their documents they sent out was telling their customers, not to return any type of email coming through them or be suspicious of it because they have their email details. The data started being sold on the underground in small batches. So it was actually difficult for researchers at that time to figure out where this data was coming from. Usually they'll do a big dump and they'll sell them at once. they were selling small amounts at a time, so it made it really difficult for us. 8 other retailers were compromised at the same time. All POS systems, and we'll get into a few of those a little bit later. And they began actually arresting some of the card users. And the malware started going up for sale. We're going to get into malware now. A little bit about the actual breach and what was lost. But the malware itself, this is where it gets interesting. Excuse me. It was actually being sold under another name called DumpCC back in February 12th, 2013. And from that point on, it started emerging into a more complex malware. At that point, it was priced really high. The underground community weren't really using it at that time because of the prices. But the developer called Re4 actually started a good marketing plan. He had 3 different versions of the software. He had the budget version, which implemented sending protocol FTP. It used FTP, but the logs weren't encrypted. It was the first edition. First edition was free actually, but it ended up being sold for $1,800. No support on this one, so this was actually easy to find on the forums for free too. The economy version actually started doing encryption, which actually prevented other hackers from stealing the data that the initial attacker was trying to get. And Sport was with that one too, and they listed that one for $2,000. Now the full version, $2,300. This you get all the bells and whistles. Everything's encrypted. You get free updates for life, and sometimes that makes a difference, especially with AV engines. And that's where it went from there. Okay, some of the more of the details of the Black POS is it actually, once we decrypted some of the, or once we translated some of the pieces of the software, it actually has user agreements, just like you'd see on typical software. You use this program at your own risk, and creators assume no responsibility for use of this software, which is interesting. And he has all his seller information in case you want to purchase this from him. And you see he has several emails, ICQ. He also has Skype if you want to contact him like that. And this is the stolen credit card dumps that were initially being seen in some of the underground forums, particularly on the Russian forums. The initial dump came out, and these were mainly classic cards, which are going to be low limit cards. That's why you see an average price of about $12. And then they started coming out with some more higher grade cards, platinum cards. And you see the range on those are 50 to 60 because these typically have higher limits. So they're going to be sold for more. But after this, what happened was the banking institutions started to cancel the cards. And the market started to get saturated with more credit card dumps, and the prices actually came down. It's not shown here, but they actually cratered not too long after this. And this is going to be a basic run through of how Katota works. Rescator is actually the person that weaponized and did a lot of the card dumps for this piece of malware. But initially, it disables the firewall. It creates an auto-run entry to launch at boot. And what this means is even if you cancel this or it gets rebooted, and POS systems often do, it'll start back at launch again. And from that point, it infects the POS system. It creates 2 files, dum.exe and mm.exe. Actually, it creates either or of those files, or the two different names. And from that point, they scrape tracks 1 and 2 from the credit card data. And those tracks involve the credit card numbers, the CVV, sometimes also the PIN number. Then it saves the data to a default, or actually it's a default, but it's also a fake .dll file. Then from then it establishes a share to the centralized server, and then from the centralized server it actually stores the data and eventually sends it off via a text file, which is a clear text file, which is easy to spot. But anyway, it sent it off to an external FTP server. And this is some of the research we did in we ran the malware in our sandbox and monitored some of the processes and exactly what it did. This would be a normal view. This is a typical service is running right now. Nothing's been infected on this particular machine. And what it does now since we run the service, it actually creates another service called Black POS, or POS WDS, I mean. And at that point, it starts to run, and it'll actually run as an administrator, as you see. And it starts the process. If you can see it down there, it's hard to read, but POS WDS. That creates a regular, typical-looking user, and this user actually has all privileges on the machine, which is extremely dangerous. And the step 2, what happens is it actually creates a net.exe file, and this is the file that's actually going to start doing some of the transferring to the shares it creates in its centralized server, getting ready to send it off out of the system. Okay, step 2. This is where the backdoor is created. This is where it creates what's called a blade logic exe. And the reason I use blade logic because it actually is part of some of the systems that they use within their infrastructure. This is all just to obfuscate what they're trying to do. So when the administrators look in the logs, they see these things, they're like, yeah, oh well, that actually looks like it's part of our infrastructure, so it's not as suspicious as it would be, if it was logged, hacker.exe. But if you see on here, going down to the bottom, it'll kill the blade logic service and then it'll rerun the service again. The blade logic service actually is it correlates all of the data coming out of the POS systems, and this is what gets ready to send it to the main server. And it does it at predetermined times of 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. And BMC, that's where they got some of the username. That's actually the best one user account that's on there. And if you read down there, according to BMC, they say this runs as system, and it has rights, and you should be very cautious about it. But this is one of the usernames they use creating their share. So things wouldn't look as suspicious. Step 2 on this is the post-infection activity. This is actually where the data is exfiltrated out of the network. It's an FTP. That's all it is, simple FTP, nothing encrypted, and it's sending out a text file to a malicious server on the outside. And you see those are actual the username, digital W and crisis 1089, and it sends it out. It creates a file with the time and the timestamp on it, and sends it out to the external server. And a lot of these external servers are actually web servers that have been taken over, and they use them to try to hide the data within them, so they don't look suspicious there as well. And here are some of the theories of how the company was actually infiltrated. The Ariba vendor portal, we've looked at that. That actually is one of the portals that they come in. They'll look at POS. They do a lot of different type of activity and tasks within the target portal. This is actually a third-party vendor, but this is one of the theories. There's actually several theories of how they were actually they did the initial attack on the network. And this is also another theory, or this is a Ariba network. Again, this is the login portal for them. But what happens is a lot of these vendor portals will give you access to the company portal, for this example, Target. And Fazio, they were also blamed as part of it as well. We don't think that it had as much to do with them as everyone says. And if you read down on the bottom, they actually said they're not actually part of the investigation. But they were they were also a vendor within the company, that did some billing type tasks for target. And another vendor portal, this is actually a target portal. This is a direct target portal for vendor shipping. This may have been compromised as well. This is one of our theories. And as you can see, this is part of the target portal. And at the same time, it's interesting, if you look down their retailer list, you see Neiman Marcus group on there. They were actually compromised with a similar type POS malware at during the same time as the target attack went on. And this is how the malware was injected. It was installed, this is the theory anyway, the POS server actually delivers updates. The centralized POS server can actually deliver updates to the POS systems. So if the malware was actually, the POS server was actually infected by the malware, it sent out an update to the POS systems, and the POS systems started to run the actual black POS malware. And from that point on, each POS sent it to a centralized server, and then they sent it, they exfiltrated the data out to an external server. And here's the evolution of POS malware. It's actually been around for quite a while. Back in 2008, memory dumper, very basic memory scraper. It actually copied a specific process in memory. And Dexter POS is probably the ones that more people have heard of if you've been watching the POS malware. It steals the process list from an infected machine while parsing memory dumps. And Dexter is actually where the black POS started to originate from. And vSkimmer came out not too long after that. That also detects card readers, grabs information, sends data to the control server. All very similar tasks. They're all pulling from memory. And that's one reason they're able to get the unencrypted card data. And then Alina POS system, that's actually been around since early 2000. It's all the way up to 5.2 on version numbers. Also does a similar task. And then of course we get down to the target breach and black POS, Capitoxa, and that's a very complex system, and we're actually going to be seeing more of this type of malware in complex forms. And the Capitoxa and the black POS and others, a lot of the others lately, have all originated from Dexter. Dexter was able to read memory from the infected machines. That's how it's able to scrape the decrypted card data. It parses the memory dumps looking for track 1 and 2 in the credit card data. And infected actually back at infected POS systems a while back in 40 different countries. This is one of probably the larger POS breaches that occurred before Target. 40% of the systems were actually in North America. 19% were in the UK, and of course it was targeting Windows operating systems. And we get to how to mitigate the risk. Some of this is going to be basic security 101, but obviously your point-of-sale systems, you need to scan them with an antivirus. You need to make sure your updates, your signature are updated. You need to check for auto-run keys, particularly ones that you don't recognize. This one was CBC HIT, and like I said earlier, if you have it in auto-run that's not deleted, it's just going to start back up when you reboot the machine. You can also check for 3 executables that were involved with this particular one. Was SVCHST. They named it as similar to processes that you would normally see, so it doesn't stand out. And of course, done.exe and mm.exe. But also be aware these file names can change. So just because you're monitoring these, you're going to have other layers of defense. You should also, and this comes down to hardening servers anyway, but you need to disable external FTP outbound access from point-of-sale systems, either at the host layer or the edge device itself. You can also create whitelists of acceptable external addresses. You can use IP filtering, You can use ACL, so that way the machines are only speaking to hosts that they are already authorized to speak to. There are also products on the market to restrict initializing and hijacking of running processes or spawning child processes. That way, you know that the jobs running are the only jobs that are allowed to run. And security policy should include a list of approved executables that's similar to above, but blacklisting would help prevent bad executables such as blade logic from running. And there's also several DLP products that would do this, help in this kind of exploitation. Here's some of the signatures we created for Black POS. The IP-based ones are actually the external servers that the FTP data was going to. So if you have an IDS device, you can use these to help mitigate some of the attack. Most of these are all IP-based. The bottom one is going to be the actual FTP File Transfer. And as you can see, it's a put command on this one. And it's actual looking for a timestamp that was similar to the one used in this attack. Here's two more signatures also you can use on an IDS. These are actually looking for the share transfer of the data. So this would have occurred first before the FTP. And it's looking for basically the 2032 directory or DLL that was being used in the attack. And also log management. If you have any type of log management, like AlertLogic's log manager, you can, on the top is the raw data from logs, but on the bottom, as you can see, you probably can't see, it's too small. But we actually created a log alert looking for the POS WDS process that was initially started in the attack. So if you were able to catch that, that was the initial part of the attack, you could stop the rest of the attack and none of the data would have been exfiltrated. And really, a lot of this came to our research team, and Krebs on security and Tripwire. A lot of this data comes from them, and we have to give credit to them for they helped with a lot of our research, a lot of our facts. So thank you, and I'll hand it back over.
All right, so I think in just a minute or two, we're going to transition over to Carl. Kevin, one question before we do that. This is obviously a pretty sophisticated attack. So how hard did these guys work to make this attack happen?
Well, they were actually in the system several months before the attack occurred. And we do have evidence that this particular malware was used at another company. Now, I don't have facts on it, but some of the underground talks, it was actually used before, and they were doing some testing on it.
Okay.
So they actually tested on a smaller retailer before, and they tweaked their details, and then they did their reconnaissance on target, and they were in the system months, 4 to 6 months before they actually started pulling credit card data.
So it wasn't just a random lucky event. It was a very focused.
It was a very focused event.
And I think shows how important it is to harden your environment.
Yes.
And I think that's a really good segue over to you, Carl, from Second Watch. Carl, are you still on the line with us?
Yes, I'm still here. Can you hear me?
We can. So I think at this point we're going to transition over to you and talk about how do you harden an environment to avoid attacks like this or any other kind of attack. So we have your slides queued up. I think if you could just, if we get out of alignment with your slides, let us know. Otherwise, you have the floor and we'll follow along.
Great, thank you. So are you going to move? Thank you very much. So I'm going to talk a little bit about, give just a quick overview of Second Watch, what we do, what we focus on. And the talk today is really about security services that are available in an Amazon Web Services environment. Second Watch is a premier consulting partner for Amazon Web Services, and we're also partners with AlertLogic. And so a lot of our customers that are moving to Amazon Web Services are also, we've often introduced AlertLogic when they're looking for managed security services, web application firewalls, and things like that. And so I'll talk a little bit about who we are, how we work, a little bit about how we're working with AlertLogic right now, and then some of the security services that are available within AWS as an overview of the things that we work with and the environments that we work in. Next slide. So as I mentioned, Second Watch is a premier consulting partner for Amazon Web Services. Primarily, we work with customers of all sizes. Most of our customers are in the mid-market and enterprise space right now. Our primary goals are to facilitate enterprise cloud migrations or to help customers set up new workloads in the cloud. We have a specific methodology that we work with our customers. We do a lot of proactive work around looking at security and availability. We work with our customers when we do architectures to plan for failure. We have our customers think about planning for things like hardening their environments, thinking about security in a proactive way, and then looking at what are all the options available to them for managing their environments. Obviously, the AWS infrastructure, we consider it very flexible, low cost, and very, very secure and highly available. The customers that we have are using AWS for enterprise-level workloads, and so you can imagine we have some customers that are global customers. They are targets just like, excuse the pun, but it's not a joke. They're targets just like Target is, and so they have some of the same issues as far as being attacked for information and things like that. So they have the same sort of concerns, and so we focus on that, as I said, in a very proactive way. Next slide. And as I said, we have extensive enterprise and AWS Cloud Experience. We have currently done about 350 cloud projects since last year. We work with Fortune 100 companies. We have some, like I said, some very large global customers that we work with. We have extensive enterprise operations experience, so many of us have worked in large enterprises, dealt with these issues previously, and so when we work with our customers, as I said, we're very proactive and in talking about security as well as availability on these systems. We have a significant number of AWS machine instances that we help manage for our customers. It's anywhere from a minimum of 60,000 plus, depending on auto scaling, and that number grows on a daily basis. And as you can imagine as well, some of our customers are working in multiple regions and multiple continents, and so the security policies and availability work that we do with them fairly extensive and are things that we think about because we're working with customers that are working globally within the Amazon environment. We have a professionally trained team. All of our engineers go through certification. We have one of the highest number of globally AWS certified solutions architects in the AWS ecosystem, and so we spend a lot of time not only understanding the environment but also looking at what things are available, like the offerings from AlertLogic that we can help our customers deploy in their environment for security and availability and things like that. Next slide. So, as I said, we partner with AlertLogic on projects, and we found that it's been a very good partnership, and our customers are using a lot of their services fairly extensively. As in our partnership, we do joint security assessments. We help our customers walk through and put together policies around security best practices. We do work with AlertLogic in doing application risk analysis. We look at secure network design, auditing and governance policies, what tools are available either within the AWS ecosystem, such as CloudTrail. We'll talk about that a little bit in a couple of slides, or with tools and offerings from AlertLogic as well. Cybersecurity protection and tools, data storage concerns, securing data both in flight and at rest as well. And then quite a bit of work securing AWS customer websites. We have extensive number of customers with websites that are running on AWS, and so we worked extensively on securing those as well. And then from an infrastructure perspective, we use secure VPC as, again, best practice in infrastructure design, application firewall, other detection tools, other protection tools that we use from AlertLogic. And then in general, we not only do we use our best practices in design, but also we have a managed services offering, and they're also very focused on issues around availability and security as well. And so security and availability on these enterprise-grade infrastructures is something that we, as I said, we focus on proactively and work very extensively with our customers and with AlertLogic as a partner on. Next slide, please. Currently, we have a very large global enterprise customer that we've done lots of different projects with. We're working with AlertLogic. Currently, with them, we are providing security analysis of their AWS environment to validate application requirements for identity areas to harden. So we're looking at, what is secure currently, and then what are some opportunities to harden the environment. So, as was mentioned earlier, that's something that needs to be done on a very proactive basis, and we're working in tandem with AlertLogic right now to do that. We're looking at current AlertLogic tool sets to see what can be deployed to help enhance the security in their environment, and we're providing engineering expertise and support services to create and manage that secure environment in AWS. And that's something we've done with this particular customer on many, many different occasions, and because it's an enterprise customer, we have different workloads that come on from different departments, and so as we onboard and work with different groups in this enterprise, with this enterprise customer, we're educating them on looking at security and things like that. And as you may know, with some enterprise customers, until you get to a sort of like the critical mass where there's sort of one focused effort around cloud deployment, you're working with different groups, and so we find it that we're having these conversations over and over again. But it's a good exercise, and it's been a good process to introduce security concerns up front with customers. So with this customer, we're creating a reference AWS design for secure environments using CloudFormation scripts, and then this is a way that they can provision quickly known environments. Those environments have the right infrastructure. They will have gone through and passed security. Security will have signed off on the infrastructure and the things that are being deployed in those environments. They will meet governance requirements, and then all of the tools, including AlertLogic tool sets and things like that, that can be deployed sort of as a sort of a push button, one-stop creation of an environment will be wrapped together in a package, and then that customer, as they deploy web-facing workloads, which they do on a regular basis. Sometimes they do them for a number of weeks or a number of months, and then they shut them down. And this is a way for them to know that it's been blessed, and then now this IT group doesn't need to get involved in making sure that they're deploying secure environments that's already been vetted, and it's got all the necessary tools, logging, and things like that involved, and then those are deployed into the AWS environment on a regular basis. Thanks. Next slide, please. So that's a current project that we're working on with AlertLogic. Just a really quick foundation concepts for those of you not familiar with AWS. I'm going to go through this fairly quickly and then talk a little bit about security on AWS, just to look at what some of the other security services that are available besides the work that we do with AlertLogic. As I said, both from a security and from an availability perspective, we work with our customers to plan for failure at every level, both from availability as well as knowing that someone will try to attack your environment. So what things you proactively need to do to plan for failure and to plan for those attacks. And as you know, there are you would think that would be sort of a standard practice, but it's not, and so it's been a good partnership for us to go in with LogiC and have those conversations with customers. The services within AWS they have multiple availability zones, so we can, if one fails, we can fail over to another one to keep applications and environments running. That, of course, introduces a certain amount of complexity, because as you fail from one environment to another, you want to make sure that all the security practices that you have in place carry over and nothing is missed. So we do some extensive work in architecture design to make sure that that's correct. There are multiple regions within AWS, and as I said, they have regions all over the world, and so we need to make sure that we're looking at any particular unique concerns within different countries, but also carrying out those best practices in infrastructure and security design throughout. And then just from an availability perspective, we work with our customers to use services that scale across multiple availability zones, because we plan for failure and because we want to make sure that we're using services that fail over and business keeps running, and also that all of the pre-planned security measures are also in place no matter what environment you're running in. Next slide, please. It's just a quick overview of some of the fault-tolerant systems that AWS has, from Route 53, IP addresses that are elastic, multiple AZs, as I mentioned, their load balancing, their content delivery network, CloudFront, auto scaling for managing load in your environments, using CloudWatch to manage your environment, and Elastic Beanstalk for application deployment. Next slide, please. Like I said, I'm just going to go through these real quick. These are just sort of foundation concepts for AWS. S3, a lot of people are familiar with that. S3, the default S3, if you're storing data there are 3 copies of your data throughout the AWS environment. They don't leave the country. They stay within country, but there are copies of your data within your particular region that you've chosen to be in, and that's something that they automatically do. A lot of their other data services are also set to be fault tolerant, and we use extensively in designs for making sure that systems are highly available. Again, and next slide, please. Again, that's just sort of a quick overview of some of the things that are available within AWS. So security on AWS. If any of you are familiar with AWS, they talk about this extensively, and this is how we work with our customers. Security is a shared responsibility. In knowing that, it's really important for us to have conversations with our customers to talk about where we work, where they work, and how we partner with them and with other partners like AlertLogic to be very proactive in managing security. So within AWS, for instance, they are responsible for the facilities. They're non-descriptive facilities. Typically, people don't kind of know. Maybe you might know where they are geographically, but they're fairly nondescript. They're highly secure. If you don't have a need to be in their data center, including if you're an Amazon employee, you're not allowed in. They don't do customer tours. They have extensive physical security, both inside and outside their buildings. They're responsible for that. They're responsible for the network infrastructure and the virtualization infrastructure. So from the cement up to the hypervisor, they are responsible for and highly proactive in managing security, and that's what their responsibility is. As a consulting partner, our responsibilities are when we are designing architectures, being responsible for building them to be highly available and highly secure to our customer requirements. We're responsible for carrying out those designs in the engineering build and making sure that we are testing and extensively making sure that we set things up correctly. Security group configuration, firewall configuration, the network configuration, setting up monitoring and reporting. So, as you know, with some of the AlertLogic tools and other tools, monitoring and reporting on a proactive basis is extremely important. assume that you're going to be finding something, and having something in place that's looking for things that are out of place is extremely important. And then the customer or second watch, because we also provide, besides engineering and build services, we also provide ongoing managed services, also the operating system security. So those are the things that the customers or we would be responsible for. And specifically, then that's a place where we bring in alert logic when we talk to some of our customers about what some of their security concerns and issues are. And we partner very well with them when we have those conversations. Customers then are responsible for application security, application development, obviously their own applications, their fixes and patches, compliance issues, and being responsible for access management into their environment. So it's a shared responsibility. There's an extensive amount of things that AWS will do for customers from a security perspective, what Second Watch will do, and also partnering with Alert Logic, and then what customers are responsible for. And if all those things are done proactively, there's good communication, then we've had we've had very good success working with the environment, both from availability and a security perspective, working within the AWS environment. Next slide, please. As I said, and I'll go through this real quick, security is a shared responsibility. AWS, from an infrastructure perspective, has gone through extensive compliance audits. They have results of their compliance audits available. Specifically, has to be requested from your audit provider, but they will provide that information. But they've gone through just about every audit. We have customers that are HIPAA compliant in AWS, PCI compliant. There are obviously, they have a Gov Cloud that has specific requirements there for ITAR. So that environment, from a physical perspective, is highly secure. There are just some very quick overview things of what we recommend our customers do as far as how they proactively secure their data, encrypting data in transit and encrypting at rest, protecting credential, rotating the keys, securing the OS and applications in a proactive way. We also recommend they use two-factor authentication for getting into their environments, and we do that. A lot of our customers do. So again, there's a quick list there, but a lot of things that can be done on a very proactive basis in order to secure an environment. Other options, enforcing identity and access management policies, as I said, using multi-factor authentication. VPC in AWS is something that allows you to be highly secure in determining what traffic goes in and out in a very specific way. Security groups for Amazon Compute and things like that. And so there's a lot of services available. Again, it's important to know what's available, how to use it, and to go in there and start using it, and constantly, or I'd say periodically, do security audits and make sure that the things that you can use are being used effectively. Next slide, please. Again, some of the certifications that, as I mentioned, that are in the available through AWS, the physical security, as I mentioned, and then some of the work that happens in the environment, in the network environment as well. So again, I mentioned these. I just wanted to give a quick overview of those. One of the things that they are, as I said, are very proactive about in that environment are things like, for instance, safe storage, decommission. A lot of customers, if a hard drive fails in their environment, they are very proactive. They degauss that, and then they put it into a hard drive shredder, for instance. So everything that happens in that environment from a security perspective is proactive, and they make very sure that nothing goes out that shouldn't go out of that environment. Next slide, please. One of the services that's fairly new that was announced at reInvent back in November that should be implemented and used very extensively is CloudTrail. And the CloudTrail is a way of logging all the activity that's happening within your AWS environment. So besides some of the logging and monitoring that you would get from deploying alert logic into the environment, CloudTrail also provides a lot of information as well. So as you're looking at behavior of things that are happening in your environment, you can use it for security analysis. You can use it for compliance tracking to make sure that you can go in and proactively assert who did what in your environment. So it will log everything that happens in that environment, so you can see what users are starting services. You can see whether or not someone opens up a port that maybe you didn't want opened up. You can also monitor for that. CloudTrail would be a good place to monitor for that type of information. Activity that you see that is either something that you expect or don't expect to see. So it's an opportunity for you to place some analysis on top of that data that's being stored and logged for you, and use, as I said, for security analysis, compliance tracking, incident management. If you have an incident, that data is available, and then resource tracking, looking at changes to the environment, using it for change management, things like that. But again, it's another tool, it's another service that's available for doing some proactive security monitoring in your environment. Next slide, please. So very quickly, I know we're kind of getting close on time. There are, again, a lot of different specific things that we recommend that our customers do in securing their environment. But the security that's embedded in EC2, it's important for customers to go in and understand what's available to them, how to use it, and how to proactively, and as things come on board, just to stay up to date on their environment, whether you're running on AWS or any other environment, things that are changing, make sure that there's sort of a proactive review of changes, updates, new services that are available in order to take advantage of working within that environment. Next slide, please. This is just an overview of security within AWS. Security groups, inbound traffic must be explicitly specified by protocol port and security. When your environment is set up, basically traffic is denied until you proactively allow traffic in. It also, using VPC with AWS also adds outbound filters as well. So specific IP addresses and things like that that you will allow to be accessed from your virtual private cloud can be defined as well, and that's extremely important in controlling the inflow and outflow into your environment. It also adds network access. You have access control lists, and then OS firewalls can be implemented as well. It's completely user controlled, and then you have complete control of that environment and all the information that's logged within that environment. Both for, as I said, there's a lot of tools available for proactive security, as well as doing analysis after the fact as well for incident management. Next slide, please. That's it. Thanks very much. There's some contact information there. If you'd like to get some more information about how we work with customers and how we partner with AlertLogic. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Carl. Obviously, you went through there's so much you can do to make your environment secure, especially if you're working with a cloud provider like AWS, who's so focused on shared security and providing so many tools that augment what a company like yours does and a vendor like ourselves do. So that's a great overview. I have one question here. If someone is thinking about moving to AWS or moving to a cloud environment, what advice can you give them on when they should start thinking about security? Is it when you're testing, when you're getting to production? Is there sort of a good point to really start thinking this is what I need to do to ensure security in this space?
We have security conversations with our customers from the very beginning, and I'd say when we're designing the architecture is the right time to start talking about security. The types of applications that you're running, who's going to have access, whether or not they're internet facing or not. It's an important conversation to have from the very beginning. We have, as I said, we have a customer that we're in the very beginning stages of a new project that we're working with them, and we're partnering with AlertLogic, and that's in the very beginning stages of designing the environment. So that's when we start those conversations. That's when we recommend everyone start those conversations and continue to have them throughout the life cycle of the project. And then after you've deployed, go back and test your assumptions and make sure that you put in place everything that makes sense to put in place. and optimize your environment both for security as well as performance and availability.
That makes sense. It's good advice. We've got time for a couple of questions. There are a couple of questions that folks always ask. Can I get a copy of the slides from today, and will there be a recording available that you can share with others? And the answer to both those questions is yes. So you should get an email from AlertLogic later today or tomorrow that'll have links to both the recording and slides if you'd like to get a copy. If anyone has a question, use the question box that you should see, I think, on the right side of your screen to ask a question. I have a question here for you, Kevin, if you're, it's about chip technology. So there's been a lot of attention on chip technology, and that could potentially make credit cards safer and maybe things like the target breach not happen. What are your thoughts on?
It's interesting you mentioned that, because Target had, I believe, looked into chip technology before, and it wasn't in their budget. But as you know now, their CSO has resigned, and I believe their security budget is quite larger now, which usually happens after a breach. You get all the money you need after the fact. But yeah, chip technology can help. But if you look at the Russian forums and the underground credit card sites, they actually sell chip device credit cards as well.
Oh, is that right?
Yes.
So even if I push my bank, Chase, I want to have a chip credit card, it still may not be safe.
No, it's much safer, but there's still ways around it.
One other question that I thought was interesting here is about Bitcoin. So if you're a hacker and you're using Bitcoin to buy these stolen credit cards, is Bitcoin now not safe as well? Bitcoin
is not necessarily safe anyway, just because of some of the people you have to deal with, and because the currency is the digital currency is not stable. I mean, it's probably one of the most unstable around right now. There's been several Bitcoin exchanges that have went bankrupt. So, people still use Bitcoin. It's still fine for certain things. Typically, it's for buying underground tools to try to stay anonymous. But people still use it.
Interesting. I don't see any other questions here in the queue. So Kevin, thanks very much for sharing the research from the research from the threat team here at AlertLogic. Hopefully we'll see too much more research of this magnitude coming from your group this year, but maybe we will with the OpenSSL vulnerabilities and things like that.
I'm sure we will, actually.
And Carl, thank you so much for co-presenting today and talking about how to harden your environment. Any final thoughts from you before we conclude the call?
No, I think we covered it all. As I said, it's something that we say that it's something that we talk to our customers about from the very beginning and throughout the life cycle of projects and in continuous conversations. So availability and security are highly important topics, obviously, but it's something to be proactive about. And then pretty much I'd say, never let up on it. It's something to always, there are always people that are trying to get into your environment. They're always looking for new methods, and there are always new tools and services available to help manage that. And so just know that it's an ongoing activity and conversation when you're talking about customer environments or production environments.
Absolutely, that makes perfect sense. Well, all right, thanks everyone for joining today. We appreciate you spending some time with us. Hopefully you got some useful information about the target breach and how to protect yourself and things like that. So again, Carl, have a great day. Kevin, thank you. I think this concludes the call.